Welcome back everyone. This will be my Penguin episode 7 video. We will break it all down. If you are new to the channel, please subscribe to get all the videos. Let's get into the video. Things are continuing to heat up in Penguin last week's episode. So, Osco rallying together many of the gang leaders of Gotham to declare war on the newly unified Gigante Maroni crime family. In the meantime, Vicky is cornered by Squid, a local drug dealer from Crown Point, and shoots and kills him after he threatens to snitch on their whereabouts to Sophia and Sal. O's mother, Frances, is nearing life end, as her dementia is getting worse by the day, and asks devastated Oz to kill her when the time comes, not wanting to live life in a vegetative state. While hunting down Oz, Sophia interrogates Oz's lover, Eva Carlo, who reveals his hiding place. The episode ends with the power being restored at Oz's Crown Point apartment, leading Vic and Francis to dance in celebration. Unbeknownst to them, Sophia is already inside, ready to strike. This week's episode, Top Hat, marks the penultimate installment of Penguin, as Oz reflects on a devastating childhood memory. The episode opens with a prolonged flashback as we are introduced to young Oz pestering his mother Frances as she works on paying taxes. Suddenly, Oz's two brothers Jack and Penny run into the room, acting like zombies. Frances initially asks if she is angry, but quickly joins them into a game of pretend. Oz sits at the table, visibly jealous of his brothers. Frances sends her sons outside and hands Jack a book to give Rex Calabrese. As three boys arrive outside a cornerstone, they witness Rex and his man beating a man. Oz calls out to the gangster, who recognizes Jack and calls him over. Oz watches in envy at the station. Jack is getting from the man he clearly views as his role model. Rain begins to fall as the three brothers head to the abandoned police station to play a game of flashlight tag. Oz is instructed to turn around and count to 10 as his brothers go hide. As Oz strolls through the station, he picks up a token and hears his brothers hiding in the overflow tunnel. Oz is angered at his brothers for choosing a hiding place that he physically can't get to it because of his deformed foot, and shuts the door on them, locking them inside. When Oz arrives back home, he tells Frances that his brothers have decided to go to the movies. Hours pass, the rain continues to fall, and we learn that Jack and Benny have drowned in the overflow tunnel. Oz has done some pretty despicable things throughout the Penguin, but we do know that he has always had a soft spot for people like Frances and Vic. While Oz undoubtedly caused his brother's death, whether or not it was intentionally done is left fairly vague. It all depends on whether you truly believe the character to be the sociopath or misunderstood the man who has just dealt with a bad hand in life. We then fast forwarded back to the present as Oz returns to a now powered Crown Point. Upon arriving at the apartment, he notices that the place is in a disarray and rushes in, ultimately finding an unconscious Vic, who revives to tell him that Sophia has kidnapped Frances. Oz barely has any time to process this information before Sal and his men enter the apartment, and Sal attacks him with a silver golf club. Oz tries to convince Sal that Sophia is tricking him, but he refuses to listen. Sal calls Sophia, who is seen preparing breakfast for Frances. Over the phone, Oz cries for his mother's safety and eventually agrees to give her over his base of operation to Sal and Sophia. Sophia walks into the room where Frances is being kept and reveals to her that Oz had told her that she had died. Frances begins to ridicule Sophia, believing that Oz will come to her rescue before she can kill her. Sophia proceeds to ask what really happened to Oz's brothers, and Frances breaks down in tears. Sophia attempts to comfort her, but instead gets slapped across the face by the grieving mother. Frances tells Sophia that the name Gigante means nothing if she is still playing her late father's game, and that she will always be a falcon no matter what. Sophia heads back to the kitchen, where Dr. Julian Rush tells her that his friend, a psychiatrist at Brookside Children's Home, has informed him that Sophia's young cousin Gia Vitti is asking to speak to the police, claiming she saw something to the night of her family's demise. Rush offers to deal with Gia, but Sophia tells him that she will take the matters into her own hands and ask him to watch over the Frances while she is away. Frances does raise a good point here. Sophia had made such a big deal out of shedding her father's name and taking on the mantle of Gigante, but hasn't prioritized taking care of her own man the way that she promised. Now, holding Oz at gunpoint, Sal and his men arrive at the drug lab, where Sal announces that they will now be working under the watchful eye of the Gigante Maroni family. Several of the men attempt to leave, but Sal orders them to get back to work. Oz shares a look with one of his employees, who is standing by the power lines and begins to talk about the smell of Tadya and Taj's corpse when he burned them alive. Distraction successfully implemented. However, Oz's men shut down the lights and fight back, with Oz and Sal fighting inside one of the trolleys during the resulting shootout. While Sal gets the upper hand, he surprisingly dies from a heart attack mid-fight. As such, it's a tragic and massively anticlimactic way for one of the Gotham's biggest crime bosses to go out. Though it's fascinating to see how Oscorp responds, as he's effectively denied the opportunity to truly prove himself against Maroni's. Regardless, Oz seemingly deludes himself that he had indeed beat Salvatore Maroni, shooting the already dead crime boss multiple times in the chest before taking his swing. While it may not be true, Oz has chosen to accept and maintain the narrative that he was indeed the victor, despite the truth that Sal died all on his own as a dark twist of the fate. To that end, it also mirrors Oz's newly revealed childhood darkness compared to everything he's previously said about what happened to his brothers. Rather than the city taking them, Oz was the one who killed Jack and Penny by leaving them to die underground during the storm. As such, it looks as though Penguin has once crafted a false reality and truth with the Salvatore device. Sophia arrives at Brookside Children's Home and begins to experience a minor PTSD episodes as she recalls her time in Arkham. Eventually, she is led to Gia's room, where she inquires about what her cousin saw the night of her family's demise. Gia reveals that she saw a gas mask inside Sophia's bag and directly asks her if she was the one who killed the family. Sophie initially denies the accusation, but then ultimately admits to it upon seeing a self-harm scars on Gia's arms. Sophia comforts Gia, telling her that she should be glad that her family is dead, as they were a bad people and she has always deserved a better. As Sophia leaves Gia, she begins to cry before receiving a call from Oz on Sal's phone. Oz informs her that Sal is dead, but that he is willing to give her everything as long as he gets his mother back. As Sophia returns home, she walks in on Julian performing a red light therapy on Francis. She updates her partner on Sal's death and Oz's willingness to give them what they want. Julian tells Sophia that Oz is clearly setting up a trap, but Sophia solemnly replies that nothing matters to her anymore. She begins to tell Julian about how, before she was sent to Arkham, her father wanted her to become the head of the family. She then starts to consider that maybe Francis was right and begins to have a panic attack. Julian ultimately calms Sophia down by asking her what she wants, to which she responds, "I want to be free, and I want Oz to feel pain, real pain, the kind that I have felt. I need him to suffer for what he's done." Back at the trolley station, Oz prepares his man for Sophia's arrival. Just as the car pulls up, Oz receives a call from Sophia revealing that she is not in the vehicle. She taunts Oz, stating that her time in Arkham did teach her new strategies and tells him that she left him a present in the trunk. Oz hesitantly opens the trunk to find a blanket, initially believing that it might be covering his mother's body. Instead, it's a bomb, with only 20 seconds left until detonation. Sophia and her men are holding Francis at the ruins of her favorite nightclub, Monoris. Meanwhile, Oz narrowly escaped by jumping into the same overflow tunnel that his brothers died in. We once again flash back to the childhood memory of Oz. Shortly after the deaths of Jack and Penny, a young Oz knocks on his mother's bedroom door, telling her that he has made dinner for her. But Francis walks out wearing a fancy dress and tells him to get dressed because she is taking him out. The two dance at Monroe's as Francis tearfully asks her young son to make a name for himself so that he can take care of her and get her everything that she deserves. Back in the present, Oz wakes up and walks through the streets of Crown Point, which has now been further destroyed by Sophia's bomb. Detective Marcus Weiss approaches Oz, calling him the Penguin. Much to his annoyance, he informs them Sophia is looking for him before knocking him unconscious. Just as things are starting to look up for Oscorp, it seems like everything is going to come crashing down on him once more. At least, that's what the penultimate episode suggests. Top Hat begins by making us believe that the episode may be another flashback, this time about Oz's childhood. While that does take up a good portion of the story, including the flashback towards the end, the rest of the episode is pulse-pounding, stressful and dreary. Salvatore Maroni's death may have felt a bit too anticlimactic, but that was clearly the intention. This has always been the story of Oz and Sophia, However, after his shocking storyline in last week's episode, it was a bit strange for Vic to barely even be present this week. All the Penguin needs to do now is to stick the landing in the finale. After speaking with both Francisco and her niece Gia Whitney, who saw the mask in Sophia's bag the night who gassed the Falcons, Sophie Gigante realizes that she hasn't done anything new since leaving Arkham. She is still playing her father's game, and the revelation of that is nearly paralyzing to her, especially after she echoes Carmine's own words to Gia from 10 years prior when Sophia suspected the truth about what happened to her mother. The former Sophia Falcon denied the dark truth of what she did to her family, nearly the exact same way as Carmine. To that end, Sophia decided to begin a new game, one that is far more brutal and focused on nothing more than pure revenge against Oscorp. Wanting the Penguin to suffer, Sophia no longer cares about the drugs, hence her decision to blow up the entire operation with a rigged car. Now the endgame is ready with Sophia still having Oz's mother captive. Having learned more about Oz's childhood thanks to Dr. Rush, who spent some time working on Francis. With only one more episode of the Penguin to go, Sophie Gigante remains the last true obstacle in Oz's way before he makes to the top of the Gotham's underworld. That said, Sophia is not going to go down without a fight. She also looks to be holding all the cards by the end of the Penguin episode 7. Having blown Oz's operation and taking his mother's hostage, one can imagine that Oz likely has more tricks up his sleeve to gain the upper hand. That said, it does seem like the Sophia may force Oz to reveal the suspected truth about what happened to Jack and Benny to Francis, irreparably damaging that which Oz holds the most dear, the love of his mother. At any rate, it's going to be very exciting to see what is this final episode of the Penguin has in store. If you find any reference during the episode that I didn't talk about in this video, please write them down in the comments. Thanks.